presentation.
The streaming is ready, you're ready to go.
Okay. I'll call this work session of the Seward City Council to order. It is Tuesday, October 22nd, and it's 5:30 p.m. And I'd ask the clerk to call roll just for the radio audience so they know who's here.
Roll call is Wells.
Here.
Osinga.
Here.
Kreitz is excused. Finch.
Here.
Barnwell is excused. Warner.
Here.
And Mayor McClure.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. And I'm just going to turn the whole thing over to the city manager. I'll let people in the audience know that we have several topics tonight, but during each topic, there will be a time I'll call on people with input. So, and what I've been doing is just, if you're loud enough, you can just speak from where you're sitting, so we don't have to have a whole lot of travel.
Great.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will ask the clerk to turn on the TV, and we'll watch my favorite movie, The Lord of the Rings. Just kidding. So tonight, the first topic I'd like to go over is the 2025 wage study. And if you can go to the next slide, Chris. So currently the City of Seward has 3 pay scales: the administrative and technical, supervisors and advanced technical, and directors and senior managers. And these have incremental increases appropriately for each of those individual scales. So with that, our current pay scale is not competitive with other municipalities across nearly all departments, especially in the public safety and the finance department. If you look back to the last 24 years, from 2000 to 2022, we have seen an 88.24% in CPI, so increase in inflation as felt by consumers, but a corresponding 34.90% increase in wages. And over the course of that 24 years, we saw 13 years with no cost of living adjustment. So over time, inflation and CPI increase per year, and the COLA should increase accordingly, but at different points throughout the history, the COLA was not increasing. So we now see about a 50% gap in between the CPI and the cost of living adjustment. In 2022, the council authorized 3 cost of living adjustment increases and a longevity structure for employees who are maxed out at the pay scale on P. And so you'll see at the end of your packet, I have an example of our pay scale. It goes from A through P, and then has longevity numbers involved as well, where if you stay with the city through that point, each additional step you can take after 2, 4, 6 years. And so at the time in 2022, there was a larger look at the pay scale and a pay plan restructuring, but the administration and council at the time decided to move forward with the 3 COLA increases and the longevity structure. And so that kind of brought us again to this point today where we see that large disparity between the CPI and the COLA. And so Chris, if you can go to the next slide. Just to give a brief background on the methodology for previous wage studies and the wage study we are looking at tonight. We are tasked with performing a wage study about every 3 years. And last time we contracted GovHR to perform the evaluation at an expense of over $50,000. Those were implemented with Resolution 2021-004, and each of the jobs were scored with a job analysis questionnaire. And over the course of that period and in the time since, we've seen 15 of those jobs were inappropriately scored and asked to be rescored, and 2 jobs were completely overlooked. So this time around, we decided to perform the job in-house because we could minimize costs to the city and incorporate knowledge of the Alaska hiring landscape as well as the individual uniqueness of the positions within the city of Seward. No 2 communities in Alaska are alike, and Seward is no exception to that rule. And many of the positions that we have in our city are very unique to what we have to offer. So our HR department, i.e. we, scored and evaluated positions not based on who is in the position currently, but based on how competitive the job would be if it was vacant and being advertised publicly today, and the requirements of the individual positions in the city of Seward, recognizing that no 2 positions in any city or municipality are the same. And that was something we really wanted to focus on, is the competitiveness of the job at the public level. If any of those positions were open, and something that we've been seeing as we continue to publicize positions, is that they are not scoring or not being competitive when put against other positions in similar areas and similar departments. Chris, can you go to the next slide? So key changes that we are putting forth in this wage study proposal is to remove the lowest grade for a more competitive starting wage. We had one position in our one field earlier, which was not utilized and was a very low starting wage. So we removed that wage completely, and we created a new grade for higher positions, recognizing the variety in duties and responsibilities for department heads. So looking at previous wage study conversations in the past years, some of the complaints were that the city was top heavy. So we spread that out so that all of the department heads and managers didn't have to fit into those 2 or 3 categories. We can have them across multiple categories, thus spreading out the positions across those wages. But the biggest key change in proposal is a wage increase of 8% in addition to the 1.5 COLA approved by Resolution 2023-055. And that 8% is in an attempt to catch up with inflation after we've seen a high amount of inflation over the past few years, and catch up to that 22-year long period of COLA versus CPI. Chris, can you go to the next slide? So the projected impact of these changes from the wage study. We become one of the top 5 communities of our size in the state for wages, particularly in the police department, where we go from being in the bottom percentile of pay to the upper percentile. We were 10 out of 12, moving to 3 out of 12. We also become a competitive community in the hiring landscape of Alaska, where a living wage for a family of 4 is $44.79 an hour with 1 adult working, and $29 an hour with 2 adults working, according to the MIT wage study, living wage calculator. Sorry, I forgot the word. And so this represents an 8% increase in our personnel budget for a total of $663,000 in FY25 general fund, which is a crossover about 65 full-time positions, give or take, with some of the enterprise positions that are not included in the general fund. Next slide, please. So I pulled some examples from the packet. In the packet, you see each position laid out with the methodology that we used to see what increases in scoring would look like. So what we did was we pulled these communities, which were similar in size, location, and type. We found the starting wage and the ending wages for the positions that we were looking at in those community. And you can also see a population next to that as well, just to get a good understanding of what we were looking for in the whole picture of this wage study. And so currently our patrol officers start at a wage of $29.96 an hour and max out at a wage of $43.44 an hour. And so over the course of your working period with the City of Seward, you'll start at an A step or a B or C step, depending on experience, and then you incrementally increases your wage across that time. You'll see 1 wage increase after you get off probation, and then typically a step increase each year with a successful evaluation. And so over the course of somebody's career in the City of Seward as a patrol officer, their salary will range from $29.96 to $43.44, which is a stark difference from Homer, which starts at $35 an hour, Kenai at $38, and Soldotna at $37. Recognizing too that we have a higher cost of living in our area than Kenai and Soldotna. So that is the patrol officer position, and if we were able to implement this wage study, we would be starting officers at $36.28 an hour and be 4th place in this metric. Chris, can you go to the next one? Patrol sergeant is pretty similar to that as well. Our starting wage currently is $35.01, and that puts us in 10th place on the wage scale. And increasing that to a grade 11 at a percentage increase of 8% is a $42.32. And I just want to clarify too, for any of the City of Seward employees watching or listening tonight, the grades represented in the packet might be different than the grade that you currently have because we deleted that first grade in the system. So if you're looking at this and being like, what? I'm a grade 10, why would I be going down to a grade 9? It's a restructuring of the pay plan, so that first line is removed and everybody would move down, but you would still be moving up. So none of the positions in here are being regraded in a way that would lower your grade system in a financial way, just to clarify that. So those are 2 from the public safety realm. Chris, if you can go to the next slide. I think something really important as we continue these conversations is to realize that public safety is definitely one that we've had a difficult time hiring because of those wages, but it also goes to our accounts payable, our finance department, and those other positions where currently we're at the very bottom. And these are the positions that keep our city running. The accounts payable makes sure all of our bills are paid and being paid, and we are currently starting that wage at $22.51. And so with this wage study, we found other similar cities and what they would pay, and utilizing the 8% would be able to start that at $28.80, which is still below the living wage in Alaska for a family of 4, but something that is a good opportunity to start in this position and move up. And those were 3 examples that I pulled from the packet of really stark impacts that we can make on our wage scale with this wage study. The remainder of the positions for every city position is in the packet, that not including the linemen or EW workers, because those are on a separate system as well, just to clarify that. So Chris, if you could go to the next slide. Take a sip of water. So outside of the CPI and the COLA mismatch, some advantages to us having a competitive pay scale is improved employee retention and reduced turnover. Higher wages keep employees and reduce the cost of turnover, which is training, recruitment. Institutional knowledge is a really important one. Something that we see in the city often is a person in a position for many years takes a job that pays higher, and that not only makes us have to train somebody else, but it makes us have to figure out what they know that we don't know anymore. And with the reduced cost of turnover, I'll continue along. Increased productivity and morale is another one. We pay wages that in some circumstances require people to have second and or third jobs. And if you have a second or third job on top of your working at the City of Seward, your productivity, while not necessarily impacted, might be less in the long run because you're being stretched pretty thin. And I don't want our employees to be stretched pretty thin because that leads to negative morale. It can also allow us to attract higher quality talent. Offering competitive wages allows the city to attract skilled professionals who might seek employment in the private sector, aka tourism. Something that we see a lot is employees coming to work for us for a few months, and then once the summertime comes around, they're able to get a job that pays nearly double in a much more laid-back environment, from, say, accounting to, maybe I'll go, I'm trying to think of be a kayak guide. I'm looking at Russ. So I think there's a really big differential in there of making sure that we can attract that high quality talent. And yes, the City of Seward also offers really good benefits, but anybody in this room and anybody out there listening who's ever applied for a job, the first thing you look at is the starting salary when you decide whether or not a job is worth you taking the time to invest in filling that application. And so our starting salary needs to be competitive so that we can hire people. Also, strengthen the local economy. By increasing the amount that we invest in our employees, it increases spending power of our year-round locals, so that those people that work for our community and work to make the City of Seward run can go out to dinner an extra night a month, can buy things locally, can invest those added funds into the community year-round. And an enhanced public image and trust. This wage study demonstrates that the city values its employees and is committed to providing fair compensation. And one of my goals in administration is to make the City of Seward a top employer in town, and to do so we need to provide fair and competitive wages. Chris, can you go to the next slide? So, next steps, lots of information, over 40 pages of wage study and individual positions studied, but from here, once we finish all of these work sessions, we'll present the FY 25-26 draft budget, I got ahead of myself. We have presented the FY 25-26 draft budget with this change implemented. So the budget that you've been looking at is seeing and taking into account an 8% increase in personnel costs. The new pay scale would have to be adopted through resolution in tandem with this budget. So now is a great time for input, feedback, questions about the process in general. And then following tonight's conversations, we'll make any adjustments and see their impact on the budget accordingly, and go from there. In your work session packet, there's the FY 2025 proposed scale, the current FY 2025 pay scale, as well as the detailed comparisons that I mentioned. And a small side note, I have included the electric ops supervisor and the utility director positions at the top of our pay scale, which is still very, very low for these positions. In talking to different rail belt utilities across the state, we are not going to be able to bridge that gap in a traditional way. So I just want to put the caveat in there that we are still working on longer term solutions to make these positions competitive in the larger utility market. But in the meantime, I wanted to make sure that these were put on the pay scale at more appropriate steps as we move forward. And that is my presentation. I'll try to talk fast.
Council, questions? No? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Councilmember Warner.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor McClure. My understanding is that the funds that would be utilized to increase the wages within the city is contingent on the 4% vet tax. Is that correct?
So for our revenue increases to fund both this wage study, we're looking at splitting the 1% that is brought in from sales tax that would traditionally fully go to the Providence Seward Hospital, as well as the 4% increase in the bed tax. So as presented, the budget incorporates the $660,000, which is partially funded by an increase in the bed tax, yes.
Thank you.
Councilmember Wells.
What's partially?
So an increase in the bed tax is addition of $880,000 to the general fund, and this costs $660,000.
No, I understand. So, but the 1% that you're saying, sorry, Mayor. Yeah, the 1%, what's that equate to?
$825,000. So we're seeing an increase in revenue from those two sources this year, spread across our entire general fund. So it's not specifically allocated for each individual thing, but with this increase, the $662,000 is coming from that increased general fund revenue from those two sources.
Public. Yeah, just raise your hand and I'll point to you or whatever and say who you are and go ahead.
Do a stand up or?
Yeah, why don't you stand? There you go.
My name's Patrick Mesmer.
Here, actually, Pat, why don't you come up and
Have
speak
them
at the
come
microphone?
up.
Thank
Okay,
you.
there's enough people.
There's
It
enough
just
people
seemed like
to-
it would be- Okay.
Hi, my name's Patrick Mesmer. I would encourage the council to support this. I am the patrol sergeant right now, but this isn't, I'm asking you to support not for me. I'm going to retire in about 6 months. I'm asking for it for my guys and the community. My history is I arrived here in 2006 and I could barely afford a place then. And I was thinking about the other day with what our new officers are like. And if I was in the same situation at the same age, I couldn't afford a place on our wages now. And I had no kids or anything like that to support. One thing we're seeing in the police office, in the police department, is the number of applicants have gone down drastically, and the quality of applicants we're getting has gone down. We've gotten lucky with a few people that have lived here locally and maybe worked at the prison have come over, or people that have ties to the community, but overall we have not been very successful in retaining people or hiring. Let's see, sorry, got on the track here. If we can't hire and retain good police officers, the things are going to get worse in Seward. Like, we're looking at a point where we may not be able to do, and I'll let the chief talk to it later, but if things keep going the way they are, we may not be able to have 24/7 coverage. We won't be able to do our jobs as well. I'm not saying that's happening yet, but that could happen. Sorry. And I personally want to stay in Seward after I retire. I plan on opening a small business, but we need to have good wages, like the city manager said, to attract and retain good people across all departments. Thanks.
Okay. Who else would like to speak? Go ahead. We'll have you come on.
Yes, my name's Shane Han. I'm a public employee. I work for the streets department. I'm also a representative for the local union, the Seward Public Employees Association. I just would like to applaud and thank the administration for recognizing the disparity of where we're at, the 80% that you sort of pointed out roughly. And And then we all do feel lucky to have city jobs, but we all feel the pressure, the financial pressure that a lot of people do feel as well. And I just want to say that I know for a fact this would help out a lot of people, especially the starting positions. Like you say, first considering taking a year-long job, maybe taking a price cut where they could work in other industries back on the slope, but other areas, other communities, and instead of doing that, they're taking jobs here, year-round jobs, participating in year-round, citizenship in this community and supporting the businesses and other, organizations within it. And this potential wage would provide a lot of financial stress or provide a lot of relief from this financial stress of making that sacrifices as far as staying here in the community and not necessarily working somewhere like up on the slope or something like that. And again, I want to thank the administration for taking this on, and I look forward to your guys' work on it. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, that was going to be my question was how does the union feel about this? So I think I got the answer without having to ask the question. Come on up.
Inside city limits. As an employee, I must state this is my opinion, my personal opinion, not the opinion of the city of Seward, my position, or my department. I have to admit, as a citizen and an employee, I'm a little miffed that this was only published with not even time for me to read it before coming to the meeting to review what's going on compared to our contract as union. And I hope that the council sees the wisdom in increasing our pay raise by 8%. We can all use it, especially those of us not in management positions. However, I would like to make sure that council remembers why this is being asked for. It's because employees can't afford to live here. When I left DMV and came to the clerk's office, I did so with nearly a 25% pay cut. That should cause more questions to ask why, but that's not here today. I am just now achieving back to the pay that I had at that time when I left. So, and I have lived and worked through those 20 years when we received no COLA. In fact, when I got hired, there was a pay freeze for several years, also with no COLA. So it left me realizing, oh, I've been working here for 20 years. Why can't I pay my bills anymore? And it's because of that lack of continuing to do the COLA, keeping up with pay and stuff. So I would hope that council approves this. I am for an increase in pay because I feel the tightness in my wallet just like everybody else. It's a good thing we have no entertainment here because I can't pay to go out and do it anyway. But I hope that council, if they approve this, also think of the other ramifications. Because living here and working for over 20 years, I see what happens when we get a pay increase. We get a pay increase and then utility rates go up. Our medical costs go up that we have to pay out of pocket. So then for those of us that are not in a management position, that negates and actually puts us in the negative from the COLA increase. So that's how I ended up going, I can't even pay my bills with both me and my husband, longtime city employees. The city position, you should be able to live here comfortably. That's how it was when I first got hired. It's no longer that case. So please think about that when you're looking at other things. For hopefully the bed tax does cover that, because that was my question, how are you going to pay for this? And I hope you do agree to do this, but also consider when you're thinking of increasing those utility bills, those rates and stuff like that, hiring outside agencies that we have to pay them instead of in-house. And consider how that's going to affect your employees too, because the 8% increase would be great, but it'll be negated if you increase all these other things that we have to pay to live here, our living costs. Thank you. Now I've got to get my husband and my daughter who are both working.
Anyone else wanting to speak? Yeah, Johan. You could, if you don't want to get all the way up there, if you could just stand up and speak loudly, it would be okay.
I'll try to
Yeah,
speak
we
loud.
need your name if you could.
My name is Melissa Scudder. I live outside the city limits. I'm here as a representative of the Seward Chamber of Commerce. I'm the current president of the Chamber of Commerce. And first of all, I want to say that I think a wage increase for everyone in Seward is needed. I know that we all feel that tightening of the belt because of the cost of living, and I really do appreciate what the city of Seward does. And I can say, just tonight, the police department did us a great favor, even though we had a false alarm, but we had 3 or 4 of you guys show up and be there to help us out. So I want to thank you all for that. Well deserved. The wage study is important. And with that being said, the Seward Chamber of Commerce has traditionally received 50% of the bed tax funds to pay for services that the chamber offers, and not just for visitor services. It's for the community as a whole. The Chamber of Commerce acts as a destination management organization. The original intent of a portion of the bed tax was to help fund the chamber and those services. And we also have to pay employees, and we've lost 3 very key employees in the last 2 years to the city of Seward. So 2 of them are sitting here tonight, and that's because the chamber doesn't have the resources that we need to attract those talented employees and keep them working and happy. You know, the role of the chamber goes beyond just, like I said, tourism and tourist activities. They're there to help manage the visitors that come in and to guide them to where they need to go, whether that's a member or a non-member. There's 4 year-round employees at the Chamber of Commerce who live, they work here, they pay taxes here. And unless the chamber can, attract them with quality wages, we're going to lose them, and we're not going to have those services for people that want to retire and start their own business. So I just want to encourage council. The chamber's not asking for 50% of the bed tax if council approved an 8% bed tax. That's not what we're asking. What we are asking is that you reconsider the cut that was made 2 years ago. 2 years ago, the chamber got 50% of the bed tax. It was capped at $300,000, and that put a dent in the wallet. And so we're asking that you reconsider the amount that is allocated to the Chamber of Commerce from the bed tax, which is largely there because of the efforts of the Chamber of Commerce. So thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else? Yeah, raise your hand.
You know, I
Okay.
can project. It's going to be slightly longer-winded, but I'll be more succinct. But good morning, my name is Mark Adams. The name might resonate. My family grew up in this town a long time ago, 2020. 2000 we moved here. I like to speak and thank you for the presentation that was there. It speaks directly to a lot of the concerns that I've talked to on what I'm going to call on the streets level for people down here in the employee section. I grew up in this town. My house that we couldn't sell during the time of 2010 out in Cuesta Woods. When I moved back out of the military in 2017, that house that we couldn't sell that we picked up for $240 went for $399. And then when I just moved back again after being trapped in Lower 48 for COVID, that same house went for $540,000. So what I'm going to speak to is this data that I've searched for myself. Since I moved back, and also I'm a member of the police department, I'm one of the new hires. Hopefully I'm one of the ones that we got lucky with as far as being a good employee. Exactly. And actually, here's the next part, is that just to kind of underline my statements here is I'm actively seeking employment outside of the city of Seward due to the wages and the cost of living disparity. I've gone to a couple application processes and interviews already. So that's just a reality of what's being said. I'm sitting proof that that's evident. Again, another number that might come down from the Seward Police Department just due to the disparity between the wages. Since I moved back to Seward, I have had a pre-approved mortgage note in my pocket, and I have been on the real estate there. Granted, I'm a single person. I don't have the family, but your dad about a family of 4, it relates to actually any household, in my opinion. What is out there for a move-in ready turnkey home, you cannot find for under $400,000. You cannot find it, which in today's APR rates and stuff like that equates that I need to make at a minimum $40 an hour to be pre-approved for that. Right now you can look at the numbers where the data is at the $32 an hour open speak that I make now. I'm pre-approved for a $320,000 mortgage. Let's just think about what's available and how we're going to get into that. The houses I have found under $400, I'll be blessed with a secondary income. come with $50,000 to $100,000 renovation. I'd be utilizing my VA zero down. So that takes that I have to take an excess of income to create a pocket of capital that I can then just throw into this home that'll be there. And at the same time, just to make it fair, where I can find these homes in Wasilla and Matsu and the sold out in the Kenai area, and even plots of land. We have a quarter acre going for $100,000 in this town. I don't understand that, but I'll speak to that in that portion. So in general, I'm very in favor of a wage increase, period. I recognize the logic, the data mining between comparing different communities and seeing what that is. And I applaud that we want to bring our PD up to at least the same or more, and I feel the same for probably any of the city employees behind me within their wage areas that need to come up. I'm probably at a higher pay scale than some of these numbers is based off of the grade. And if I'm feeling it as a single person, can we imagine that how many of these dual income homes are making the $40 to $50 they need to survive? It's very difficult. And on top of that too, one thing I'd like to close with in consideration is the idea of a COLA. Being prior service when I went to Aptech here, when I was, gosh, so broke and just trying to survive and getting the BAH at that point in time, the basic allowance housing goes off of a COLA. It looks at the area and cost of living, and that's continuously increasing over time. Currently, what I was just checking the data in the area, it's anywhere from $1,800 to $2,000, which is supposed to account for about 80%. So $2,000 a month is supposed to be allocated to housing of some sort for temporary conditions. So even if we do meet it, I would ask the council to consider, even as a COLA, that we have an increased COLA to match the wage study for the area. So say we get started and we bump us to $36 an hour, that's great. But it still doesn't cover the gap between what our cost of living is. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'd like to, yeah, me and Nancy will.
Hi, my name's Nancy Hilbert. I've worked for the city since 2019. I was the Harbor office manager for several years. I work in the finance department now. As somebody who was very close to the hiring in the Harbor department, I have some fairly real-world examples. Administrative people are thin on the ground in Alaska. So finding people in Alaska that you can hire who have accounting skills and who have office skills, it's challenging to do anyway. The Harbor, you saw the AP for what the AP position here in Seward starts at. The Harbor office front office people start even lower than that. So it is hard to recruit people for that job. It is a job that involves a lot of wear and tear. It's hard to keep people for that job. The nature of the job makes it challenging. However, I had an employee who lost his housing to an Airbnb, and he spent 6 months looking for new housing. He almost moved into a yurt with no power and no running water. In the end, he was able to find a cabin at the last minute, but that was for more than half of what he was making in a month. I had a seasonal employee who wanted a full-time job. She wanted to settle in Seward permanently. She took the position and realized that when she finally got her paychecks and looked at them, she just couldn't afford it. She couldn't afford to work for the city year-round. She went back to being a seasonal employee because she can make a lot more money in the summer even than she can working year-round for the city. So I've seen firsthand how hard it is to recruit and retain people. I've seen the pressure that the pay scale puts on people and the pressure that the housing puts on people. It really is a challenge, and it does affect our basic functions. You know, if we need people who can do the AP in the finance department and who can work the utility counter and answer the phone when people dial 911, right? Like those are all, a lot of those are entry-level kind of positions, but with housing being, you know, if it's $1,400 a month for a one-bedroom cabin here for a single person making 20-something an hour, it's just untenable. And the city benefits are really good, but at the end of the day, what the banks look for too, if you're trying to apply for a mortgage, the banks are looking at your annual income or your hourly income. I was really lucky to have family help, or I would not have been able to afford a house of my own here. So I really like it here. I really want to stay here, but it really is a challenge. And you know, sometimes it's challenging working for the city anyway. If you have a public-facing job, right, the customer service part can be really challenging. If your job is also not compensated competitively, and you can be a kayak guide. I mean, I've had 2 employees do that, right? Like they've left to go do seasonal work because they can make more and it's less wear and tear. So I think we need to recognize that the city employees provide value, and anyway, so I appreciate you guys bringing it forward, and I appreciate you guys considering it.
Okay, thank you. And
My name is Elijah Ballard. I work over at Public Works in the Water Department. I have worked for the city since 2022. And I just wanted to bring in to notice, recently I went up to Fairbanks for a training for water distribution for my position. And the city of Seward starts their water operator and training position at roughly $24 an hour. The utilities that are up there, they're also taking the same class, all entry-level positions. We're starting out at mid-30s to low 40s. And on top of that, the bump that comes with coming out of your probation period, and then also your after your evaluation, it's roughly 40 cents. And so say you get the 2 bumps that year, that's only 80 cents for the whole year. In average, that's about, say you get the 2 bumps, that's average about $80 a paycheck. You know, looking at inflation, the way it's grown since you go back even 2020, I don't see how $80 a paycheck has really helped any of the employees of the city of Seward. I started in the harbor, and I recognized the way that the administration over there is treated by the community. They're in a position where they can't disrespect the community, but they are just beat down and treated very poorly by everybody that goes through there. I'm sure finance sees the same situation. And, you know, based off the pay, it's not really worth it. And then also, the manager of the harbor, they manage a lot of the contracts and services that the harbor provides, and just the workload that's put on them based off of the pay that they receive, I don't think is fairly compensated. I think skilled labor across the city, you know, going from the police department to the electricians to the water to public works to even parks and rec, I don't think it's fairly compensated, and that's why I think we have a revolving door. Crime in our community has been going up, in my opinion. Recently we had a terror threat at the school. It's still going through still being worked on, going through whatever happened with it, but my daughter is now about to be going to school. She's in preschool. She goes to the Sprouts program, and having a threat like that, and knowing that we have such a revolving door with our police department, it makes me fear for my family, and we really need to retain good employees and, you know, keep our community safe. So I hope this goes through. So thank you.
okay, thank you. We've heard a lot of support. Anyone else? We won't be voting to, yeah, I'm just pointing out, this isn't, we're not taking any action tonight whatsoever, but we will. Yeah, go ahead. And then I'll get you next, okay?
My name is Lisa Music, and I'm the admin at the Fire and Building Department. And I've been here working with the city since 2021. I'm on the lower end of the pay scales. I'm not in management, so I'm not making a whole heck of a lot. I've recently, starting last year, started picking up summer seasonal work and taking my leave to be able to work seasonal work as a second job, because I could make more in one day doing that than I can in 3 days at my regular job. Like, it's just not feasible. So it's very hard to just live off of a small wage, especially when I can make so much more in the summer, in the seasonal time. It stinks. I have to use my leave to spend, you know, time working another job. But that's what I've been having to do. So admins don't get a lot of pay for what they do, and I don't think that people realize how much admins do throughout the city. All admins have a lot to go on their plate. So that's all I got to say about that.
Hi, good evening. My name's Greg Haas. Speaking on behalf of the chamber,
One thing I wanted to echo and expand upon from what Melissa talked about is the history of the relationship between the chamber and the city is one that has been one of the most fruitful revenue streams in helping things grow. There's a lot of things that I know Kat has done a wonderful job with the analytics, and when I listen to the business plans and whatnot, the investment that your predecessors made in growing the chamber. I'd be curious, it's tough to really find exactly what that number is, but the investment in the chamber has put probably more money back into the general fund than many of the other programs, and I hope those monies go to your people. I hope those monies go back into the city. But I do, when we talk about tourism and infrastructure and businesses and that, we do recognize that what the chamber provides dollar for dollar has a wonderful return, so we can put that money back into youth, put that money back into our employees and our staff. And I think y'all have the right voices speaking to you, and from talking to each one of you in so many ways, the right head and shoulders for how to help Seward High, work through this challenge. So I appreciate what you do to help the chamber grow, and I hope you also support what the chamber is doing to help with the general fund and what you all are doing with those monies. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Anyone else? Is there anyone out in the hall that wants to speak? Can you see? Okay. Okay, I'm going to bring it back. Rhonda?
I had a couple questions first. I was wondering, is you, and I was a little frustrated too with getting this kind of at the 11th hour as well. And do you have, or is everybody on hourly, or is someone salary? Or
So everybody's salary is based off an hourly wage, but some people are exempt and non-exempt. So I have an annual salary, but I don't get paid overtime, but it's still based off an hourly wage.
Okay. And so I know you mentioned about the medical benefits, and I think the city offers a very generous medical package.
Yep.
And I don't know how that's, if that can be mitigated at all in some respects. Isn't there, some employees can get medical benefits from their spouses or another member in the family that has medical benefits is covered? Does that help mitigate the cost of the insurance package at all, the health benefits?
Nobody's ever going to choose the spouse's medical. We are in a good position where we offer great medical insurance, and we'll continue to do that. And in many situations, it is better than what somebody else would offer. But yes, if they do make that choice, then it is a plus for our budget.
Because I was just wondering if there was a way that employee could get credit for that if they chose a different plan. Maybe they don't want as a robust plan, or they have some other alternatives, or have a what do they call that, a health savings account or something like that. Is that something that can be considered? And as well as, is there any health incentives for the employees so that you can mitigate claims? And is there a rise because of the claims? So I think I think we all should be concerned about our health with
for sure.
And if we're paying for that, it would be good to have everybody have a little skin in the game on that. So, I too, the cost of living, people need a higher wage to live here, and so I'm all about COLA too, also for the residents, and I would like to see us make a consideration of keeping our rates down. Again, I'm still a little frustrated about the 6 cent a kilowatt increase on our electrical rates, and I think if we go back and revisit that, we should actually consider giving us back another penny or two on that. I think the budget can afford that. Plus, you're going to have to wean yourself from the $2.7 million of transfers that go into the general fund from the electrical if you're going to really go back at trying to sell this utility. So I think you're going to have to you really should give that a hard look. And it does cost more to live here. And as we turn into this seasonal town, it's, and people wanting to come here and buy second homes or vacation homes, and it's just makes the cost of housing and everything else go up. So not only please look at the COLA for our employees, but also for the citizens of Seward and the year-round people that live here.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
If I could real quick, Alan Nickel, I'm the chief of police. Ms. Hubbard's idea there is something that I've kind of kicked around myself, and one of the things that I've tried to do is offer the city manager some ideas of things that we could do to improve the benefit package, because in my mind, a lot of our issues here are kind of symbiotic in that, you know, you have pay and you have housing and then you have benefits, and if we don't fix all of those things, then you still might miss the boat, you know, like people could still leave to go find the better benefits if we don't pay attention to that. So, so in the same vein with what she put forward, one of the things that had come up for me was, and the way that I look at this is, when an employee comes to work here, you know, you agree on a wage, but you also agree on those benefits. You agree to that medical insurance, you agree to the retirement system that you get, and most of the people sitting behind me, you know, unless you've been here for a very long time, your retirement system now is just absolute garbage. So, so when it comes to this medical insurance issue, one of the things that I thought about it was, if you don't need that medical insurance, let's say your spouse has, you know, they work for the state and they've got just as good a coverage or better than what we offer, could the value of that insurance be put back into their hourly wage and they opt out of it completely? And I don't know if that's possible, and you know, Suli knows more about it than I do, and so does Kat, but it's just one of the things that I had thought of. And then another thing was have a range of protections that could work both to the benefit of the city and to the employees. And the way to think of that is kind of that silver, gold, platinum plan type of thing. And I don't know if that's possible, but I've heard employees bring that up before, and I just wanted to throw it out there. And then if I could circle back to what Karen Corrigan was saying, you know, I was here in those days as well when not only did we experience COLA freeze, but we also, in the same year, experienced insurance hikes. And so we actually lost money to stay here and in those years. And I can tell you it was not pleasant. So, so I just wanted to point that out. I think that's what Karen was trying to say, and I wanted to maybe clarify it. And then Kat said that the cost of living over here is higher than the rest of the peninsula. And so I had done my own research on this, and what I found, and you guys can look at this for yourselves, is in 2008, there's a Alaska Geographic Differential Study. You can find it on the State of Alaska website. And even back in 2008, Seward had a higher cost of living than anywhere else on the peninsula. And yet, we've always had lower wages than anywhere else on the peninsula. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. It's, you know, and if that was in 2008, you can only imagine how bad it is right now. And then to the kind of like what Officer Adams brought up to you, Mark, you know, talking about the homes. I did some research into that as well, and I was looking at bank lenders like Rocket Mortgage, Bankrate, DSLD Mortgage, etc. And basically what they said was a person should make $110,000 to $150,000 a year to afford a $450,000 home. So where did $450,000 come from? Well, I pulled that out of the air based on what I see online as sort of like a realistic median price for Seward. And then I decided to take that a little bit further, so I looked into Realtor.com, and Realtor.com as of August of 2024 had the median home price in Seward at $442,500. So I was pretty close to the mark. So when I apply something like that to the police department, the only person in the police department who could hypothetically afford a home in Seward right now is the chief of police, myself. And I can tell you, I don't own a home in Seward, Alaska, because it's too gosh dang expensive. So, if you want these folks to stay here, I mean, you heard it, I don't need to repeat it, like, we gotta fix it. And so, I really hope that you'll support this, and I can come back later with some more facts if needed, so,
Okay,
thank you.
Okay, anybody else? We could bring it back to council. Okay, are there any additional things from council on this? We will be discussing later, at a later time, implementation, right?
Yeah, so to clarify again with those next steps that we put forth, as Casey mentioned earlier, this wage study utilizes revenue that we were able to add to the general fund budget this year from the increase in the bed tax and a splitting of the 1%. And so oftentimes people will associate one or the other with, oh, this is the splitting of the bed tax, so it's increasing the wages, or it's increasing the bed tax, so we can increase wages. But in the general sense of the general fund, all of those funds go into the general fund and we can allocate it appropriately. So without one or the other, this will be a harder thing to accomplish, and we would have to reevaluate that. But at this point, based off of the budget that we have proposed, utilizing that additional bed tax revenue and those tax revenue as well, we were able to accomplish this and budget it appropriately for it.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on the wage study? We've got, yes,
Can I
Councilmember
comment?
Wells.
A few comments. First of all, thank you all very much. And I am in no way, shape, or form for any employee, whether they work for me or for the city, and having to cut their medical in order to increase their pay. And if you do that, if people opt out of the insurance company's rates go by the number of people that participate. So the more people that opt out, then the people that stay in are gonna pay more. That's not fair either. I'm pretty taken back that little old Tufted Puffin does an annual pay increase to keep up with inflation. And to hear that you've had pay freezes, it's wrong. And I'm 100% for fair pay for all of you. And I thank you very much.
Councilmember Page?
Yeah, I'd like to say I agree with everybody. I understand, I know most of you. I've visited 30 years and I've seen the housing market go crazy, and everybody should be able to afford a home. I mean, I wish the housing market would focus on the year-round locals purchase first before B&B, out-of-town money, or seasonal workers, or seasonal housing. But I agree with Randy. If you guys, what you were saying about the freezes, the COLA, that just mind boggles me. I don't see how that could have happened, but I'd like to just fix that.
We're in a fixing it mode. Okay, can we move along?
Yes.
Because it is...
Yeah, we will be moving along to talking about the Hospital Enterprise Fund, so I will invite the crowd to leave if they would like to, not telling them that they have to. Yeah, we'll take a 5-minute break, and thank you to all of the staff and employees for making it out this evening. No, we can just take a break.
Yeah, no, I know.
Mayor McClure, you're ready to go.
Okay, I'm just going to gavel us back into the work session. It is now 6:32 and we're moving along.
Great.
Madam City Manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am going to pass the mic to Finance Director Sully to talk through the next part of our work session tonight, which is the hospital enterprise funds.
Good night, Council. Within the laydown, you will see the budgeted cash flow of the hospital fund and also operating budget for it, also the Mountain Heaven Enterprise Fund budgeted cash statement flow, and then the revenue and expenditure. So I will recap a little bit of what is going on with the healthcare and see what you guys can decide and having future conversations with Providence at this point. So the healthcare enterprise funds accounts for operating and capital costs associating with Providence Sewer Medical Center. The PSMC operation include the hospital and emergency room. On the healthcare fund side, the hospital fund has
Excuse me.
Sorry.
Where are you?
Where are you?
Sorry, we're talking through it overall as a whole, but we're currently in the first
yes.
two pages.
'Cause we're like-
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, no worries, no
I
worries.
was lost. Sorry.
Thank you.
a little bit of a history about the healthcare fund. Into the healthcare fund, the Sewer General Hospital PERS loan payment that owes for motor pool loan is in that fund, representing at that point almost $500,000 for it, and it matures in 2026.
Where does that appear?
So that is on page 2 under the hospital enterprise fund,
Yeah.
and that's the internal loan that we talked about tomorrow with the motor pool fund as well.
So what line?
You'll see it under transfers out?
No,
No?
that will be in.
Oh, sorry, she doesn't have the page numbers.
Page number 3.
I was wrong.
On the
Page
debt
3.
service principle.
Okay, hold on.
Page 3.
Where is?
Page 3,
What number?
8012.
Okay.
Oh, 8300.
8300.
Debt
Yeah.
service
Thank you,
principal.
that's
All
why I
right.
wasn't finding it on page 2, okay.
And that loan will mature in 2026, and we indicated that last night too as well from the motor pool. So this is the last 2 years of that one.
And so,
Go ahead.
for maybe
Yes.
us council members who didn't pay attention, or us newest council members, let's say, can you just give us a brief description of what that loan is?
Yes, so when the Sewer General Hospital moved towards a contracted management with Providence many moons ago, the PERS positions were terminated. And so when a PERS position is terminated, you have to do a PERS termination study, and that PERS termination study comes back with an amount that you owe to pay into PERS to make sure that the people previously in those positions have the retirement that they were promised. And so the way that our retirement system works is the employee in the position now pays into it, and then the person who was in the position before uses that. So it's cyclical. So if you cancel a position, that cuts off the payment into the PERS position that that person who was previously in it relied on. I did that with a flourish as I was trying to remember the word. So when we moved the hospital over from Sewer General Hospital and a city-run hospital to a contracted hospital, we canceled those PERS positions and had to incur a debt. And that debt was paid through from a motor pool fund loan that matures at the end of 2026.
And so we do not have city employees at the hospital
Nope,
now?
there is no city
Just
employees at the
for-
hospital.
No.
It is a
Right.
contracted run
Providence.
organization through Providence.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
We are just carrying over the debt until 2026, and that will be paid in full.
Councilmember Finch?
Yes, so how much are we getting back from the hospital yearly? Because we own the hospital, we own the land, we own all the equipment they purchase. And I see now we only get a yearly report instead of a monthly report, which I hope we go back and revisit that clause. But how do we know what they're spending the city's money on if we're not getting a monthly report? Because I think in 2022, the amount they had was 5 million. 2023, it dropped down to 300,000. Where did that money go?
What is something very hard to explain is the relationship that the city have with the hospital. So that relationship is not in base of revenue on expenditure. They can provide you financial statements with all the revenues and all the expenses, but at the end, what it ties to them is the debt service. So if you see page number 3, under the revenue, is zero revenue as of today, because they have been paid their portion of that debt, and by the contract, they doesn't have to give us any money back as a revenue.
So the contract states that revenues must go to debt payment only. And in addition to that, there's no additional need for payments required by the contract to the city to take additional revenue outside of the debt service payments.
So in other words, the hospital is not a moneymaker for Seward?
No, it is not, no.
Well,
Just general. Yes, Councilor.
Thank you, Madam. The hospital isn't, but Mountain Haven is a moneymaker, which showed in 2022, they had 5 million in profit. And in 2023, it dropped down to 300.
But the contract covers both, so
Yes.
any revenue from either of those initially goes to cover debt service, and then outside of that, there's a clause that would require them to cover maintenance and things along those lines, but.
Okay, but when the prior administration did this contract where we were getting monthly reports to only a yearly report, and now the advisory council gets the monthly report, we need to revisit that so we can see, because they're taking the money that should be coming to the city, and there's some things going on that
So
I can privately sit down and point out.
I think at this point in time, we are operating within the contract, and as we move forward, we have the opportunity, I talk with both the administrator over there, and I serve on the council, so there's an opportunity, or the advisory board. So we've been working on meeting and continuing and increasing the amount of the reports. So that is something that we recognize has shifted in the past, and we'll work towards getting it more in alignment with what the council requests.
That I was just going to ask.
Yeah.
Did you have something, or?
Yeah, but I thought I had it right. So the hospital generates revenue, right?
Yes.
And can then purchase equipment with that revenue, correct? Or, so that's where I get, that's where I'm a little bit confused.
It is confusing, it is confusing.
And so, I know that you have, maybe you can help, because this is year number 4 for me, I still struggle with this understanding.
We all do.
So we provide the hospital with capital funds each year for them to buy equipment. So we own the property within that hospital. They are able to utilize their revenue that they keep outside of the debt service payments according to the contract that we have with the hospital.
And the debt service payments are for?
They were for the Mountain Haven building, but they are reaching maturity. So that is why the revenue stream will show 0, because those payments are no longer being made because that debt has matured. So we can discuss with council as a whole in the future. I know we've been directed to move forward with sorry, the words are escaping me a little bit tonight. An investigation. What do we call an investigation?
I like investigation.
Investigating the options as we move, whether or not we wanted to move forward with the sale of the hospital to Providence. We can also look into with that continued debt service, so we can expand some of the service up there so that revenue goes back to covering debt service. So those are some of the options that we have on our plate as we move forward, but as it currently stands, we have to represent what is going to happen, and what's going to happen if we don't have any debt service and Providence continues to contract work for the hospital is that we will not receive revenue, and we will give them money for the capital if they want to increase their capital, and then we'll go from there, and which is a bad thing to say, but we'll figure it out as we work through it.
Part of the strategy here is to keep half of the portion that we have given to them, half of the 1% of the sales tax, right? In the past, the city has been contributing with that portion representing in 2023 around 1.6 million. And that basically has been forever. With this budget cycle, we are proposing to keep the half of that into the general fund, and then with any kind of recommendation from you guys, sees if we can either continue this relationship with the hospital or separate the entities for. The only piece that it atties us as of right now is the debt service, is what I'm trying to
Okay.
just say.
And that piece is almost gone.
Yep.
Or it is gone.
Their portion has been paid as March 31st of this year. Until now, the bond principal balance is 12.3 million. If we wanted to pay it off early, we should wait until February of 2026, and then pay off around 10.2 million without any fees.
Without any early payment fees incurred.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you.
So you say that we're operating within the contract with them, so that we don't have anything in the contract that says they have to pay us to run that, or, I mean, outside of the debt service?
Technically, yes. Yeah. There is it says may, you know.
But I mean, we want to also put money into it for infrastructure.
Yeah, because we own the building.
Yeah,
exactly.
And then by the contract, we are obligated to continue contributing with the capital.
Right.
All of the capital equipment are owned by the city, and all of the maintenance is rely on our liability, not theirs.
Okay, so, let's see if I got this right. You're telling me that when they're making a profit on the city's property, housing, and equipment that they purchase, they get a hold of that money, and none of that money comes back to the city to be used or reskirted?
Do you have I don't have the printed out.
Because like I said, I looked at it in 2022, they had 5.6 million. In 2023, it was down to they'd spent down to 330,000.
Yeah.
When that money could have come to us, and it should have, we don't even have a capital expenditure report on it.
Sorry, I should have brought the clause in the contract with,
We can
have
a discussion.
So,
I'd love to see the contract.
yeah, great. We'll have Finance Director Sully
I'll be right back.
grab that contract so we can read that clause to you.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Well, we'll definitely in the
don't wanna
future
be here
have a
till 10
work
o'clock,
session
but-
related.
Yeah, and so that,
We don't have to hash everything out.
and so I think recognizing that the relationship between the hospital and the city is one that is really beneficial. It's had lots of transition and turnover in a lot of the positions that are key to maintaining a successful collaborative relationship, and we've been in the process. Helena and I meet monthly. I'm on the advisory council, and we have been communicating. So I think recognizing that some of the past instances or the decrease in reporting and things like that have happened, but we're on a trajectory to solve that and to remedy that, and moving forward with within the bounds of the contract, recognizing that our debt service is going to mature, we'll be paying that off, is key to budgeting for the next few years of how we're going to do that, and while we think about what these big decisions look like. And so Providence will perform all billing and collection activities for PSMC accounts receivables, will process AP, and will provide other administrative, accounting, clerical, all revenues and cash collections, including those from patients by Providence and arising out of or related to services rendered during the term of this agreement, and all grants or portions thereof attributed to PSMC arise out of or related to PSMC during the term of this agreement shall be used first to pay debt services on Seward Mountain Haven bonds issued by the city, then to offset operating expenses of PSMC incurred on or after the effective date. Providence shall aggressively collect all... Oh, it's on the other side. All amounts billed for services provided at PSMC. The excess, if any, of such revenues over such expenses shall accrue to the city's account and to be applied in the city's sole discretion to pay debt service on the city's existing general obligation and/or revenue bonds. So that is how we have been operating, with the shall be used to first pay the debt service, then to offset operating expenses incurred on or after the effective date. Sorry, I lost my train of thought with all the papers.
That's okay.
I have no question, I just want to make a comment.
Yeah, go ahead, Councilmember Mills.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With maybe council's agreement, I understand that we're working through the budget process right now, and we're working with the contract that we have, and I can, and I understand that, and I don't want to make a whole scene out of what we could get or what might happen, but I would not mind having a detailed work session regarding the hospital, after the budget session, after we're all done, right? Because we're not getting any of that money now, so let's not waste any of the budget session time, is my preference.
And I would like to point that out, that if we move forward with this budget cycle, right, and we keep the half of that percent in the general fund, we need to take actions within the hospital fund before it gets negative.
Which, that would be a resolution to change the...
Oh, yeah.
No, we don't need to make any resolutions or anything. It's speaking to the fact that we can't not make a decision about this, as we move forward with the change in the allocation of the sales tax revenue. We'll have to move forward with choosing what to do next and how to navigate that relationship.
So we will have a work session?
Yes, we will most definitely have a work session.
Yes.
Which we were planning anyway at some point, so, okay. Okay, is there more?
Thank you.
Things?
No, that's a lot, I think.
Okay.
Anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I would like to mention that also, the city holds committed funds into the general fund, representing working capital for 1.5 million, and also the hospital line of credit of $500,000. Again, this is something that the city was kept aside in order to have, just in case something was happen in the future with running the hospital. I mean, those are very old.
Yeah, we've had a good parachute for the hospital too for a long time with some of those funds.
Okay, thank you. So what else do we do tonight?
Well, we have some good recommendations. We will plan on that work session. I think where we are currently at with the Providence Hospital budget is definitely a change from what we've done in the past, but I'm confident that it'll be a good step forward, and then we'll be able to revisit that in a larger discussion in 25 and have that discussion then. I want to thank everybody who came out to speak to...
Got one person who wants to speak yet, so...
but to speak to the wage study and the wage scale. So I think part of that and funding for that comes from the splitting of the 1%, as I mentioned. So just a reminder that that's where those revenues are coming from. So as we move forward with these discussion items, if there's thoughts on those, feel free to share that as well. So that's where I'm at.
So, did you want to speak?
Sure, I appreciate.
Oh, this is Rhonda.
I appreciate what Randy was saying about needing to have a work session around the hospital. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to consider and look at there, especially for the future. And I'm wondering on page 4 of the report, there's, and I thought this is probably really not very, I don't know, but what is the estimated cash balance? There's a lot of money there. So what is that going? Where's that going?
On
I know you said you were
page
going to pay down the debt.
4?
You need to pay for.
Where's my page?
It's just a stay there. It's
That's
for the
my-
payment of the bond.
Yeah, so that will be for the payment of the bond in 2026.
Correct, but it's not that much, right?
It's 16
It's around that within the fees and all that. If we pay off early, it's around that.
You're not gonna get penalized if you.
It will be penalty. So without the penalty, it's 10.5 million. So
So is it worth it to pay early? or just wait?
If we have the funds in the fund, why not? But
Because those funds are, so paying it off in 2026 decreases the
Penalty?
the
the
interest.
penalty and the interest.
Oh, so penalty, interest, it's
Yeah.
better to pay penalty than.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And those funds are earmarked for that debt service payment, so that would be what it would have to be, what it would be
Can't be
utilized
used
for.
anyway, right?
Yeah.
Their portion is already paid. Why we don't pay our portion early? The funds are there.
So, the way I understand it, so this 1% is it's gonna continue on, we're paying it in our property tax?
Sales tax.
Sales tax, yeah.
So the sales tax, so so it doesn't matter then where that's gonna go at the end of the day after this is all paid off?
It's all general fund
No, it
revenue.
will stay completely in the general fund then.
It's like settle down, boys.
So we could have some extra cash to grab.
Depending on the outcome of future discussions and communications, yeah.
Right. Okay, anything else? Our public left us.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, thank you. I hope this is an okay time to, maybe just for clarification for myself, I was looking at the next steps when it comes to the pay scale, the wage study that you guys did. It says that this will need to be adopted through a resolution in tandem with the budget and the next steps, but I'm not seeing anything in the next steps on addressing the 4% increase in the bed tax. So when would that conversation be coming up, or when would we be addressing that?
Yeah, that is a great question. So there are 3 items in this year's budget that would have to have an ordinance or a resolution attached to it. The first would be a ordinance to increase the bed tax by 4%. The second would be a resolution to adopt the FY 2025 wage study and pay scale. And the third would be a resolution to add a new position in the firefight department, in the fire department.
So how do we go about
So if
that?
if appropriate, and it is a intent of the council to want to have those discussions further, it would be great to get a recommendation from council to move forward with creating and drafting those ordinances and resolutions, which you could do today in the work session, and then we can bring them. My tentative plan is to bring the budget for approval and discussion for the first time at the November 12th meeting, and then to have those resolutions and ordinances, if directed by council, at those same meetings, so that it's all part of a cohesive discussion, because.
Right. And we would still have to.
And you would still, there would still be time for discussion and everything then as well.
So this evening then, if we brought up each one and got some head nods of recommendations?
That would be wonderful.
Okay, so let's talk about the firefighter position. I would say let's keep that in one position at this point. This could be modified once we have the thing too.
And that's what's currently in the budget.
Yeah, currently we have one in the budget.
So you have our recommendation
Yes.
to move forward with that, and then the wage study as it is? Yes,
Absolutely.
yes.
100%.
I mean, we can also modify, once it's a resolution or whatever, we can, okay. And what was the
The bed tax.
The bed tax, which we have not discussed, but to discuss it, it would be good to have a resolution in front of us?
Yeah, I think the question at hand is whether or not you'd like to recommend me to bring forth that, not discussing whether or not you're for or against it right now.
That's what
So if all of you are like, I don't even want to talk about that, you can tell me that tonight and we can go back to the drawing board. But if you want to have the discussion.
Let's talk about that one, because that's
It's only
the one.
fair to bring that forward for us all to see it and discuss it.
And bring that one up.
No matter how we
That
feel
would be first
individually.
before, because everything else falls after that.
Yeah,
Agreed.
no matter how we feel about it
You got
individually.
all the head nods.
Great.
Wow, that was.
I just want to make sure that one comes first.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, let's do this one
Because
first.
doing them simultaneously, we can get to a final budget easier, and the people will the citizens will hear discussions over and over and over and over about it then.
Yeah, that's the best part.
Okay. Is there anything else for tonight then?
No, thank you very much.
I just wanted to, if anyone's still listening, Monday, this coming Monday, the 28th, right?
Yes, mhm.
We have a work session at 5:30, which will include...
Great, thank you so much. This upcoming Monday at 5:30, we'll have a work session to discuss the final two pieces to our budget, enterprise departments of the harbor and the electric department. I will give some input ahead of time. We are not looking to raise the rates of the electric department at all, so just to give some insight there ahead of time. And I do apologize to those who have been following at home and keeping track on the late disbursement of today's laydowns. I do plan on having those out to the public by the end of this week for detailed investigation over the weekend.
And then, following that work session on Monday, we have our 7 o'clock meeting.
Yes, we do.
Just for the public, so you get to see us up here. Oh,
great.
Is there anything else for the good of the order? Yes,
I'd
Councilor.
like to remind everybody that's listening to get out and vote.
Early, if you want.
You can vote early. You do,
Or on
everybody.
the
I'd like to see higher than 20% how to show up to vote.
Yeah, there's voting here, as you stated. Yes.
I think there's one other thing happening on Monday. Are we swearing in a new council member?
Oh, we will, yes, we'll have the ceremonial swearing in of the two elected council members, yes. We did it privately so we could get Casey seated for all of this excitement, and now, you know, they'll be the formal.
The official.
Yeah, so we'll get to do it again. Yes, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Great. Anything else? Okay, I'm going to close the work session at 6:58.